Welcome back to the People We Meet podcast. It's been a few months since we had our last podcast. We've had a busy spring. Our daughter graduated and got married, and then we've been out of town some. So we're excited to be back in the podcast seats. And today we're interviewing David Chamblee with O2 Performance and Recovery. And Antonio's going to introduce him, or kind of how they met.
Well, me and David, we actually met about a year and a half ago. We were in a business group together called BNI. And I guess you were in the group for about 4 months, and then I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And David reached out, and I started doing sessions before the surgery to help the cancer not to spread. And then after surgery, I began to do sessions just so to help recover. And me and David, we built a really, really good relationship. We've talked a lot about sports and different things like that. And so O2 Performance really helped me to recover, and with all the oxygen and different things like that. And so just seeing all the benefits and all the people he was helping, I decided to join his team.
So hence all the T-shirts.
Hey. Yes.
So the name of the therapy is a long name, intermittent, let me make sure I have it right, intermittent hyperoxic training, IHHT, and not, what's the other one for exercise? HIIT, HIIT.
HIIT, yeah.
So not that one, not HIIT, but IHHT. So we just want to know kind of what the definition of IHHT is.
Yeah, so IHHT, I know that's a mouthful, but intermittent hyperoxic training, as you hear in the name, you're using high oxygen, so oxygen that would be anywhere from 75 to 80%. And keep in mind, here in Athens, Georgia, we're breathing about 21%, 20.9. So that's about 4 times what you would breathe normally. And then we also use hypoxic air, which is low oxygen. So we'll be anywhere from like 14% all the way down to 9%. So if you take the 20 you breathe in the air, you take at least a third of it away. And then with our athletes and people who are really training at a high level, you're taking half their oxygen away and making them move and exercise doing that. So the idea behind IHHT is that we are having you do some type of movement or breath work on low oxygen. And during this time, usually a minute and a half to 2 minutes, what happens is that your body starts to recognize where's all the oxygen that was breathing, and your body's mind is thinking, well, if this continues, this won't be good for us. We're not going to make it. So your body is going to start compensating for the oxygen it's not getting. And that's what we're looking for in this training or technology. We're trying to get you to that place where your body starts to compensate for the lack of oxygen. Because when you get there, a lot of good things start happening. You start creating more red blood cells in the body. Of course, your heart rate's going to elevate slightly. And then your vascular system's going to open up and dilate, what we call vasodilation. And when you can get into that state, you're in the optimum place to absorb maximum oxygen.
So let me ask you this. How do you go about monitoring that?
Yeah, well, we have a couple of ways to monitor. The main way is that we're going to use what we call bilateral pulse oximetry readings, which is using pulse oximetry on each side. Those are the things that everybody got familiar with during COVID. You put them on your finger, and it tells you where your oxygen level is. We're using those on the right and the left. And so the idea is we're trying to get to below 90, and we have a little beeping sound when it goes below 90. So that's the zone we're trying to get in. So in the traditional medical world, it's the opposite. If you get below 90, you're going to the hospital.
That's my first reaction. I'm a nurse, so yeah, that's my first reaction. Wait.
Right. But we're trying to get you there. And of course, before we take anybody down to low oxygen, we're monitoring, and we're going to make sure your levels are healthy. If your levels aren't healthy, then we're going to keep doing oxygen until they are. Sometimes somebody may come in and we may do 2 sessions of oxygen only to get their levels up to a good level that'll sustain. And then once they have that good level, we take them down to low, and we try to drive those numbers down into the mid 80s. And once you are there and you flip the switch and go from low to high, one thing you got to remember is you get instant relief. Like when that 80, 75% comes in, it's like 5 seconds and you're completely revived, right? So that's the idea, is that we're trying to create that demand. We have the pulse oximeters, we're measuring, we're bringing it down, and then we flip the switch to high. And the key is that we're watching how the numbers come back up. Not so much how they go down, but how they come back up. In the perfect world, they're going to come back up together within 25 to 40 seconds, but that's very rare for most people initially. But most of the time, one comes back up faster and the other one delays. And if we see a pattern forming over a few sessions, then there's always a reason for that delay. And then we start, kind of monitoring what's going on that side of the body. Sometimes we know ahead of time going in, and sometimes you don't. So we're always watching those numbers pretty closely.
And one thing you were saying, it's like when you flip it to low, it's creating that demand. And then when you flip it back to high, it brings speed with that?
Right. So with the low oxygen and the high, there's two different, paths that you can use. And so the role that low oxygen is playing for most people that do this, if you're using it for anti-aging, you're using it for chronic disease, is that we're only using the low in order to put speed behind the high, right? So if we can create a demand and then bring that high oxygen following the demand, it's going to really put speed and momentum behind that oxygen, and it's going to pull it in like a vacuum effect. And when you can get speed in the blood, oxygenated blood that's flowing, and it hits that tissue, nerve endings, and brain harder, you're just going to get better results and deeper oxygen penetration. So that's one role that the low plays for most people, like in recovery, for athletes recovery, for most people that are just trying to get that oxygen deep into the body. And then the other role that the hypoxia low oxygen plays is for training. We train our athletes. They're going to spend most of their time in low oxygen, so their body adapts to that environment. And even with people that are really trying to come out of breathing issues and COPD and asthma and things like that, that low is really important because the low forces the adaptive changes in the physiology that helps heal those types of conditions.
Okay.
So, depends on what the goals are and what, condition the person has to how you're going to use that.
So I've heard you compare this to altitude training. What is traditionally altitude training? People would actually go to Colorado or, other places in the world to do this naturally. So is that kind of what you would compare it to?
Yeah. I mean, there's a form that when you're dealing with your athletes and the people that are really trying to take their performance to a higher level, we would call that altitude training, and it's going to mimic, for example, if I put somebody at 9% low oxygen, well, that's like 22,000 feet. That's way up there.
So like what mountain would that be?
Man, that would be, 22,000 feet. Like,
Pikes Peak?
we don't really have anything
Nothing.
that high over here,
okay.
really.
So Georgia being at, you mentioned Athens is around 20%. That's just because of our altitude.
Right.
And so the higher you get, the lower the oxygen level concentration is going to be. Okay.
Like Kilimanjaro, that's 20,000 feet, right at 20,000 feet. They're talking Everest, talking 29,000 feet.
Okay.
We're not going that high.
Okay.
Because that's, we don't go below 8.5, because once you get below 8.5, that gets a little dicey for humans to do it. So we stay really below 7, kind of gets dangerous. So we stay above, 9.
And about how many seconds are you talking in that, in that low range, 9% or so? How many seconds do you have? And I guess it varies between each person.
How long are they staying that low? Well, I mean, if you got somebody that's doing this and really conditioning themselves, they can stay 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, initially, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But the body adapts. You start creating more red blood cells.
Okay.
As the body adapts and you start getting those red blood cells from the spleen, which is kind of that performance, legal blood doping type thing,
Yeah.
EPO, so what they call it. Yeah, you can have somebody that trains on a regular schedule that can go quite a while.
Wow.
It just
Okay.
takes a while to work up to it.
Okay. And then how is this different than, you hear about hyperbaric oxygen treatment or even the supplemental oxygen like you see in some football games, the guys will go on the sideline and put
Yeah.
oxygen on. How is this different? It's creating that demand, but can you explain, especially hyperbaric, can you explain the difference?
Right. Yeah. So we're big fans of all oxygen, right? We think hyperbaric's great. We ride on their coattails all the time. It's just a different approach. It's a different delivery system. So hyperbaric is going to pressurize oxygen to an area. It's going to kind of force oxygen in, right, through pressurization. There's no movement. And, hyperbaric is, all the studies show that, over time it gives really good results in a lot of things. The difference with this would be we're not pressurizing anything.
Okay.
We don't even use pressurized air. Is that we're creating a demand for your body, and we're letting the body make the decision. Because once you create the demand and then you bring in the high oxygen, it's going to naturally pull down, which creates the speed into the area that's being demanded,
Okay.
where you need it most. And if you can saturate the body with that oxygen with momentum behind it, it's going to naturally fill into the areas that you need it. So it's just a different approach. And, hyperbaric, usually an hour or so, hour and a half, you're in there, and this is, 15 minutes, 12, 15 minutes. So it's just a lot faster, a lot more volume that you get in, and, tend to get quicker results in the sense that, if you do one session of this, you're going to feel something, right? Like people always feel it here first. Wow, I don't know what I just did, but I really feel something's different, right?
Yeah.
In hyperbaric, you get that as well, but a lot of times it takes a while to start getting that feeling.
Okay.
So,
And then, do you have any more questions about?
the supplemental
yeah.
oxygen on the sideline.
Oh, yeah,
that's
that's
the
right.
other one. Is just the idea there is they're already in hypoxia. I mean, they've been running and they're already winded. We're mimicking that with the low oxygen, but they're already there.
Okay.
So then they come in and they're just giving them a boost of oxygen following that.
Okay.
Yep.
And one thing that I thought was really fascinating is just if you have different areas in your body, or it's like far as the right or the left, once you go from low to high, and when your body's coming back up, it's going to show where you've got issues.
Yeah. Yeah, that still fascinates me. I mean, we see it every day. You see it when you do your sessions with people. And it's just, it's pretty uncanny how that happens, is that someone can come in and maybe you don't even know because you haven't talked to them that deeply. You just kind of find out if they get any medical issues and they're good to go. And then you start to see that pattern on one side that comes up slower. And then you start saying, hey, you got something going on the left or the right? Let's say the left's coming up slower. And they always say, they're kind of like, how did you know that? Well, yeah, I do. I have my neck's been bothering me here, or a shoulder. I just had knee surgery, or my back's been tight. So that happens, is all the time. And then people are like, how'd you know that? But yeah, that oxygen, if it's pulling down, together, and then one comes back slower than the other. If you see a pattern forming, like sometimes just once, it could be the liver, it could be something that happens regularly, especially on the right side of the body with the liver. But yeah, I mean, I see it, you see it, Karen sees it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask about how you got into this, because I've heard a little bit of your story. How did you find out about this training? I know you've been in this for a few years now, 8 years or so.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So what was your initial contact with this type of training?
Well, my father got dementia, and he died in 2015. And so really in probably 13 or 14, somewhere in there, when he was in the late stages, he had PICS and Lewy body, which is frontal lobe. And his went pretty quick. Once he got diagnosed, it was 3 years, and that was it. But, he looked really, you couldn't tell if you looked at him. He was still very healthy. He'd run and ride horses like a month before he died. So, but his mind went really fast. So I guess probably the last several months, I really kind of went into the, down the rabbit hole because I was really disappointed in the response of like the doctors and the neurologists. They just kind of were like, yeah, just go home and play crossword puzzles and here's some meds to take. I remember just thinking, really? Is that it? I mean, that's it? There's nothing else? And I said, there's got to be something else.
Yeah.
So I started going down and doing a lot of research, trying to figure out. And I kept coming across oxygen as being a key, try to get it to the brain. And then I first tried hyperbaric, and I did that, myself. Tried to get my father in it at the, toward the end there, but he's just claustrophobic, and there were weights everywhere, and he was really, at that point, he was probably too far gone.
And you just didn't understand, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
So when he passed away, I remember, talking to Karen about, hey, I got to do something. I got to be proactive with this because, we were, about to have a child, and I was like, I don't want to go when he went. He was 73 when he died. And so anyway, I just started looking at lots of different stuff. So I was micro-dosing hydrogen peroxide, where I was drinking what they call food-grade hydrogen peroxide. And I remember I was doing that and running and felt amazing doing that. And I thought, okay, this kind of works. And then I did hyperbaric. And then I came across this, what's called, at the time, Libo2. And I kept coming across this online, but I just couldn't find a lot of information. The website was really bad. And I just saw little snippets of people here and there on like chats talking about it. And I just said, that can't be that great because I don't hear much about it. But I just kept coming back around to it. And so I decided to buy a system at home for brain health. And so I bought it, and it arrived, and there was really no training. The company was really young and small. So I just got on there and started doing sessions and kind of tried to figure it out myself. And I remember once I kind of got the hang of it, after about a week of doing it, I just started feeling really good. And, I started going out and doing stuff I normally didn't do or hadn't done in a while. And I remember I was talking to Karen, and she goes, what are you going to do today? It was a Saturday. I said, you know what? I'm going to go play basketball somewhere. And she looked at me and went, basketball? You play basketball? She didn't even know. And I said, it's been a long time, but I love basketball. And so I went and played with the neighbors.
Wow.
Kids. And I just felt great. I was moving. I was like, wow, it's got to be that. And yeah, and I started working in the yard and pulling weed, doing all kinds of stuff for a long time. And then she was like, what has gotten into you? And I was like, I think it's that. And then she finally did it after a few months. And she goes, yep, it's that. So anyway, that was my first experience with this technology, kind of not knowing. I bought it for this, and they ended up really feeling it here. And then I just kept calling the company every day, asking them questions, and they kind of got tired of me calling them. And they said, hey, we got a conference in Orlando, and we need help because we don't have many employees. And we're going to, do you want to come down and kind of give us a hand? And I did. And I just kept learning and training and going out to Colorado sometimes where they were. And, just right place, right time. New technology. And I just kept at it and thought, I really enjoy doing this, and you're helping people. And I thought there was a future in it. So that kind of got me into it.
So over the last 8 years, what have you seen? What kind of diseases have you seen that it helps, or what kind of conditions? So I guess start there with people with chronic conditions, maybe.
Right.
What have you seen it help?
Well, I think the first couple of years I was just learning from them. And then, when I started this company in 2019 and started having people come over and get local people, then that's really when I started getting the experience. So I think the first thing is lowering blood pressure. It seems like a lot of people that would come over that would tell me, wow, my blood pressure keeps going down to like youth levels, so that was probably one of the first things. And then just people would always say they have energy, felt really good mentally, so like I know depression, anxiety, and things like that. I could tell the folks that did it really felt really good here mentally. And then, finally over time, over a few years, I just started dealing with different conditions. And then the company I mentioned, Livo 2, that I was doing stuff for, as I started my own company, then they would contract me out to train and send me to places to train people, basically people with money, or doctors' offices or teams. And again, it was a new technology, so it was really just me and a couple of
Learning
people.
how to do it, yeah.
So it wasn't like I was so great at it. It's just there was nobody else. And so then I started running into, Lyme disease, folks, chronic fatigue, and of course, people as we got into the COVID era, vaccine injuries, long COVID, that became really prevalent in like 22, 23. And I was doing a lot of traveling just for wealthy people who had vaccine injuries they found a benefit from this. And so, just a lot of things. And then the neuro, a lot of concussions and some pro athletes and just regular folks that had issues with car accidents and things and concussions. We got some really good results there, helping them recover faster. And then sometimes just fixing something that we didn't know what was wrong, it would just turn a switch back on and people would be fine after that. So we were trying to figure out what that was all about too. So a lot of different things.
Okay.
Yep.
And then as far as the athletic teams that you've kind of installed systems for, or for the whole team or individuals, what kind of, I know you've been out to Colorado and Arizona. What are some of the, I don't know if you want to name some of the teams or
teams? Yeah, I can name the teams. So really my first team that I started working with was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that was a kind of a interesting story there. I knew one of the doctors for the Arizona Cardinals, who I just basically pushed myself in front of because I knew he loved the technology and nobody was really there to give him service and training, and he was kind of a little bit frustrated. So I forced my way into his office. No, actually, I made up a reason to go and told him I'd upgrade his system. And I was training a guy in Las Vegas and from New Zealand, and we went there to his office, and he took time with us. And I just said, hey, I'm your guy. I know you need, you love this technology. Just send them to me, and I'll take care of them. I'll train them. I'll do everything. And he's like, okay, that's what I need. So it kind of started that way. And then he called me one day and said, hey, the Chris and Bruce Arians at the time, the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, there was a client of his, and he said, hey, because they were with the Cardinals before, and he said, can you go to their house tomorrow because she's having some issues that I think this will really help her with, some medical issues, some breathing issues. So I said, okay. So I went out there, and then basically it was like, hey, can you come as much as you can come? And I said, well, sure. And she said, how often should I do this? I said, well, with your condition, probably 3 times a week. And she said, okay. So they paid me really well to do that all summer in 2020. So I got to know them, relationship, and then Coach Arians started doing it as well when he would come in from playing golf. And from there, one day he's just like, hey, man, the Bucks, we need this. This is really, this is impactful. We need this. So he got me there with the team, and I went down and trained their staff. And this was right before the 2020 season. They won the Super Bowl, so that was good timing.
Hey.
And so that was my first team, really, and I credit the Arians for that, and Dr. Drobot for the Cardinals as well. And then from there, the Arizona Cardinals, again, there was association there with the doctor, and so got them going, and we trained them for altitude training. They were playing a game in Mexico City, and so I started working with them as well. And then went into the NBA a couple of years ago, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, they contacted me. At that point, I had sort of developed a reputation, like, you got to call David. And so they reached out to me, went up and trained them, and they got systems for the team, and got them ready. It was right before the playoffs, not this year, but last year. And so that was cool. And then from there, the Denver Nuggets went out to their facility, worked with their staff and trained them. And then got into a little bit of hockey with the Chicago Blackhawks and a couple of their players, started working with them, Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves. And anyway, so yeah, it just kind of spread from there. And then I've just sort of, they'll know people and they'll refer them to me, and then they'll call me. So it's been good being able to work with different athletes and work with some teams.
Oh, that's awesome. Just a wide spectrum of people, from athletes to chronically ill.
And you forgot about one of the main ones.
What's that? Oh,
DDP.
Well, he's not a team, but yeah, Dallas or Diamond Dallas Page. I've had a kind of a special relationship with him as well, just because, again, I can't exactly remember. I think it was through Livo2. We had communicated. Me and his brother communicated for probably 2 years, and his brother really wanted him to get in this Rory, and DDP was just too busy, and he was a big hyperbaric guy, and doing his thing. So I just kind of forgot about that one. And then one day he just reached out and said, "Hey, bro." He goes over by bro. "Hey, bro."
This is Hulk Hogan's friend, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're all. At
That's
the same
all
time
I know from pro wrestling is Hulk Hogan. So I don't know who knows who DDP is, but I now know who he is.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan's contemporary. I'll put it that way.
So he's just like, "Hey, can you come over Thursday, Saturday, and Monday? I want you to come over 3 days, in Atlanta." And I was, I said, "Okay." So anyway, we went over there. So yeah, Dallas, and then Jake the Snake, was there, and Jake had a lot of serious issues, breathing issues at the time. So anyway, cut a long story short, did a session with Dallas, and then Dallas finished. He took it off, and he said, "Bro, you don't need to come back Saturday or Monday." He goes, "I feel this. I want it. Let's just do this." So I said, "Okay." So in fact, as I was leaving that day, he wanted me to help he and another guy to move out one of his hyperbaric chambers out into the hallway. And I said, "Well, where are you going to move this?" He goes, "Bro, I'm selling it. I'm going to do this." I said, "Well, shouldn't you wait a while and see the results?" He goes, "No, I know this works." I said, "Okay." Anyway, and then we started working with Jake, and Jake has had a lot of issues with time, and then he really put a lot of work in. We trained him, was able to get him off of supplemental oxygen and off his inhaler, and he had COPD, he had emphysema, a lot of stuff, and there's a picture of he and Karen at the Christmas party 3 months after we started working with him, and his wife and daughter were like, "Doesn't need any of that anymore."
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's DDP.
Fun.
Yep.
And so for me, it was really fun because we actually went and put a 2-man system down in one of his places in Florida, and went and installed it, and I actually had a chance to watch him work. Well, after we got the system in, he was like, "I got to do a workout. I got to make sure you got it right." And he did a session. He cranked up the music, and I mean, it was pretty intense. How old is he? What, 78?
68.
68?
Yeah.
And it was just like, I mean, he was doing empty lung breath holds, up to 8 seconds, and it was like, whoa. And so,
yeah, Dallas does it at a high level.
Yeah.
And we're talking 8 seconds after he's been in hypoxia and low oxygen for a long time, which even doing it 3 or 4 seconds in that state's really hard, and he was knocking out 8-10 second holds, so he does it at a high level.
Well, thank you so much for that good summary. We've been wanting to do this for a while, and we want to be able to share this with other people, like especially now Antonio's. This is what he's doing, and he wants to be able to share it with other people. Give a really, really good explanation of what you guys do.
And let me ask you this: based on just random people, what would you say to them?
Like what would be a good refer or someone that would really benefit? It sounds like anyone.
Yeah. I think probably the low-hanging fruit, if you will, the person that's really kind of gravitates toward this. Because if you have a 21-year-old that already feels good anyway, why would they do it unless they're an athlete, that's just trying to recover faster, injury, concussion, performance enhancement, whatever. But I think just the average aging adult, who's now feeling they're slowing down a little bit, the energy's not quite what it used to be. The immune system maybe is a little bit compromised. maybe a little brain fog, and just sort of feeling like they're just losing a little bit from quality of life. I think those are the people that probably gravitate to us most, because this can quickly kind of give you your mojo back, if you will, and that. So I would say that type of person. And then, of course, all kinds of people with chronic conditions. They're when you have those types of conditions, like a lot of people that we deal with, if you just let it go, you're probably not going to make it that long, right? Your life is going to be a lot shorter, and the quality of life's not going to be good. So I think we help people really get quality of life back, and not that we're the can fix everything. I mean, a lot of times we have to encourage people, like, hey, it's not just what we do, but you change your diet. And Karen, helps with nutrition and all in that respect, and some other lifestyle changes. And but this is just a big part of that, and it's short, 15, 20 minutes, and you can package all that into getting the oxygen deeper in the body, creating a positive stress on the body through the hypoxia, and then wrapping all that up in 15 or 20 minutes, which will take a lot of time otherwise to do that.
And let me ask you this: your clientele, what does that look like? I mean, as far as the group of people that come and do sessions with you.
Right. Well, I think breathing conditions is something that we've seen a lot recently. COPD, asthma, a lot of COVID-related long COVID, where they just feel like they just can't breathe like they used to, or as deep as they used to. I think we've seen a lot of that, because it's really effective for that, like quickly. And then, we've got some athletes, some people that compete at a high level, and they just feel like it takes their game to a higher level, not just speeding up recovery, but just, gives them a little edge when they get, whether it's the fourth quarter or late in competition or running, whatever, that little performance edge. And then the other, we've had a few people, just like yourself, with cancer, maybe don't want to go the traditional route with chemo and radiation and things like that. This can be a piece of the puzzle, kind of a natural recovery or healing for that as well, that can be really effective, keeping that body in an alkaline state where the cancer doesn't spread or grow as much, right? Or if you've had cancer, to keep it at bay, keeping the body in a place instead of it coming back like it often does, taking that percentage way down so that your body's in a better state for that not to happen.
And I would like to say this. It's just like, I'm getting a lot older, and back maybe 3 or 4 months ago, they do like a big bike race here in Athens, and I did 35 miles. Believe it or not, I did 35 miles, and I mean, I'm wiped out, and so I'm downtown, just dragging, and I'm like, let me just go to the office and just see what it does. And I get there, and I didn't do any exercise. I basically, put it on, did low, high, and it was like, I felt amazing.
He was bouncing off the walls when he came home. I'm like, did you really just ride that bike?
Because normally I'm wiped out for
he
the
sleeps
rest
the
of the
rest
day.
of the day.
And I've been doing this for years, and just, like doing it myself and seeing the benefits, it's really made a major difference. And and I would say, just come and try a session or two and see if it's for you. It's not always just with chronic issues and different things like that, but just people that's looking to maintain their health and different things like that. And so,
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Finally,
Yeah,
got all this worked out.
Thanks
We've
for
been trying
having
for
me.
a while.
Yeah.
And again, thank you for watching The People We Meet. And
how do we get in touch with you?
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, so
We'll put the link in the description too.
Yeah, so email like info@o2pandr.com. It looks like it's the letter O. Looks like O2 Pander without an E. Anyway, that's the email, probably the easiest way. And then our website, o2pnr.com. The website's actually the August 7th, which is coming up, we will have a brand new website. So we've been working on that too.
Great.
Those are the best ways. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you for watching, and please, if you haven't already, like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.